Thanks so much for joining us today for our webinar on eDiscovery for Slack. My name is Allison. I'm an Enterprise Success Lead at Onna, and I'm joined today by Joe Pochran, President of Forensic Technology and Consulting at TransPerfect. Thanks for joining us, Joe.
Thanks for having me, Allison.
Of course. So we're here today to discuss eDiscovery in the age of emerging applications. So as we all know, there are ever-increasing amounts of productivity tools and workspace applications, which provides to be a little bit difficult for eDiscovery professionals to navigate as there's constant new forms of ESI, and the process is always changing for collection and review. So Joe, you provide services for your clients all over the world in terms of eDiscovery and digital forensics. What is the most common question you get from your clients?
So I don't think it is one particular question. I would say it's a few questions that come up time and time again. The first is, how do you actually collect Slack? How are we getting that data back? If a client has a Slack platform, but they've never needed to collect that data for litigation or discovery, they've never gone through that process. So they need to understand, what is the most efficient, what's the most cost-effective mechanism for getting that data back. Second is, what is that data going to look like? What is the format? How are we going to place this in a legal review platform and view this data? And then third is, if we have custodians that we need to put on legal hold within Slack, how do we do that?
Right. And speaking of Slack, you just published an article called Cutting Us Some Slack, which was great. And in this article, you discuss Slack as a revolution. So what constitutes this revolution, and how does it affect eDiscovery?
Sure. Well, I think what I was speaking to in that article was Slack's popularity. We haven't seen a chat application, a cloud collaboration platform, really scale like this in corporations and businesses alike. So, just seeing that, you're seeing that there have been articles over the years that Slack would replace email. That certainly hasn't happened, but you are seeing companies, move to Slack as a primary means of communication over email. So that's really what I was discussing in terms of now we have business records in the form of communication that are in Slack, and sometimes even more so than email.
Right. And what are your options for acquiring data from Slack?
Sure. So I think it's important with there in terms of options, as normally comes up with our clients, is also understanding what Slack plan the client is on, because that's going to dictate some of your options right out of the gate. But at a high level, you have options from Slack. You have a standard export, you have a corporate export from Slack. There's nuance and there's limitations to that, and I would recommend anybody watching this webinar understand what those differences are and what that process is. And probably more importantly with that is understand that when you get that data back, it's going to need to be processed to make that digestible and viewable. Another option, which is the route I most commonly go, is to use a third-party application like Onna. Onna is able to connect to a client Slack platform. We're able to have options to choose if we're collecting channels or messages, and then it's going to provide that in a format that is just much easier for legal review. And then lastly would be, and this is something a client really would need to have in place, is that you have an archiving system that already is synced to the client Slack environment. It's already archiving that information, and that would be the repository to go to.
Right. So it sounds like leveraging the tools that are available are really important to you, which is great. We're all for using new technology in this space. Now, you spoke about the different types of Slack accounts that companies can have. What are the differences between, say, Slack for Teams and Slack Enterprise that you have found?
Yeah, so for us in the discovery space, I think the big difference is understanding the data that's available to you, and then also how you're going to go about collecting that data. I'll give you two examples of that. One, from data that's available to you. So if we have a client on Slack Enterprise and we're accessing that data through their Discovery API, we're going to have deleted and edited messages. When we have cases that are investigations, they're looking at a specific ex-employer or something along those lines, and it's really crucial to gather all that information for the investigation. That's a game changer for us. I think that's one. I think the other is, which is probably not discussed as heavily, but really is important, is when you're on a different plan, like if you're on the standard plan and we need to authenticate through the employee, through the custodian, we need their credentials, we need to connect to them, and that impacts time. When we're on a Slack Enterprise plan, the interface specifically with Onna is very different. The speed, efficiency to collect is quite different. So I think that's kind of the major changes we see and major differences.
Great. And then finally, what advice do you have for legal teams and eDiscovery professionals as they go about these new forms of ESI and discovery, particularly with Slack and new applications like Slack?
Sure. I have a lot of advice, but I'll keep it short. I think you need to understand the nuances of the Slack plans. Understand what your client is on. For example, if they're on a free plan and you see discovery coming down the pike in the future, know that you're going to have data that's ephemeral, that is going to dissipate. It's not going to be there when you need it. So, understanding that. I think also understanding what your options are for collection and review. Understanding the differences of if we get a corporate export and we need to take JSON data and then process this just to get this into a review platform. It's a very different process than using a tool like Onna to collect, have all the attachments, push that directly into a review platform. And then I think lastly is just understanding the nuance of legal holds. This is becoming much more of an important issue now that Slack continues to gain in popularity, and just understand what your options are for placing somebody on legal hold. And really my last point is that these platforms are constantly changing. So we're going to be doing a webinar in July, and July 2020, that platform's going to look very different. Slack's going to look very different. So understand the tools in the marketplace that are evolving with the platforms.
Definitely. That's great advice. Thank you.
Sure.
Well, thanks so much, Joe. Next, I'm going to invite Nicole Thompson, our head of client success at Onna, to come and give a demo of how Onna connects to Slack.
That sounds great.
Thanks, everyone.
I hope that you enjoyed that conversation with Joe and Allison. My name's Nicole Thompson. I'm the head of client success for Onna, and I'm really excited to take you through our platform today, especially in context of a Slack collection. So we're going to be starting in a workspace in Onna. And a workspace is a collaboration space where you can add the different sources that you need to search across, as well as share with the different people that you need to collaborate. We find that our clients use workspaces as individual matters where they would be able to add the Zendesk or the Gmail or the Slack source that they need to investigate. Or if they're using this for knowledge management purposes, it would be where teams could come together to share the information that they need. So as I scroll down, you can see some of the sources that we connect to. And if I go over here to the right-hand side of the platform, then I can see where I can add another person to the workspace. The benefit of using a workspace is that you can add people with different permissions. So if I wanted to add my colleague Russ, then I'd be able to type his name. And here you can see some of the different permissions that I can give him. So manage, edit, contribute, view. The view permission is how we see our clients interacting with outside counsel. So if they've already done an early case assessment and they're ready to share a very specific body of information, then they're able to do so with the view role. Let's go through a Slack Enterprise collection. I'm going to go over here to the right-hand side and click Add Source. Here you can see a number of different sources that you can integrate to the platform. Now, all of them are going to have this easy OAuth flow that we're about to see with Slack Enterprise. I'll click Slack Enterprise, and immediately you'll be able to see some of the advantages of using Onna as a collection tool for Slack Enterprise. Onna allows you to be very granular with all of the sources that we integrate to the platform. Specifically for Slack Enterprise, you'll be able to choose between direct messages, multi-party messages, public channels, private channels, and it's this granularity that allows you to be very focused in what you're adding and reviewing within the platform. You'll need an org owner account to be able to go through this collection. So once I click Connect, we'll be taken to the Slack OAuth screen, where you can see that all that we're asking for are read privileges. Now let's click Install. We'll be taken back to the platform where we can see some of the different ways that you can integrate with the source. One of the first options that we see is the option to do a custodian collection. Now, this takes advantage of Slack's audit API, and if you're looking to put users on legal hold, then you'll be able to see a list of users that are part of the account, select the users, and then just gather information that is related to their accounts. Since we're going to be going through a legal hold, let's select that as an option. The next thing that you can see is the different types of synchronization modes that we offer. One-time sync allows you to take a snapshot of information. So if you wanted to just select 3 months worth of data, then you would be able to add a start date and a finish date to your collection. And once the collection is done, then we will stop interacting with the API. Otherwise, you'll be able to use AutoSync and Archive to create a continuous sync with the platform. When I click Next, because we've chosen Custodian Collection, the next screen that we're going to see is a list of all of the user accounts on that Slack Enterprise account. I can easily filter to the different users that I'm looking for. I can begin to type letters in her name and her user will show. Let's look for Jonathan. So I can quickly find Jonathan's user, and let's select Jennifer as well. For those 3 users, the next thing that we're going to do is see information that is related to their account, specifically their channels. Once the channels have loaded, then I'll be able to go and user by user see what channels they are within Slack. Over here, there is also the option to automatically sync any channel created in the future. So if Jonathan joins another channel in Slack, we'll be able to collect it automatically. Once I click Finish, then Onna is going to establish a connection with Slack Enterprise and begin to collect the files that are on those accounts. So here you can see that the platform is syncing, and once a connection is established, files will begin to populate. So we've shown you how to do a collection. Now let's look at how some of these files are represented in Onna. I'm going to go to the Slack Enterprise internal investigation source that we have set up. We have this source set up as an archive. Let's say that I've just received news that there are people talking about a top secret project called CPSO. In Slack, I would be able to look for CPSO, but if as an admin, I look for CPSO and I am not part of that private channel, then I will not be able to find it. Let's see that process in the platform. Once I type CPSO, I can see a list of channels that are popping up. I can see that there are some private channels as well. Let's open this first result. Here, immediately, you can see, again, another of the benefits of using Onna to collect from Slack. Once we open that file, we're able to see immediately one of the benefits of using Onna to collect from Slack. Because we're processing and indexing all of the files, we're able to do things at processing, such as label has edits or has deletions when a file has either of those attributes. It makes searching for edits or deletes in Slack across a user or a channel very easy. If I look at the representation of the channel within Onna, I can see how the original message at 2:39 says, "Did you get the information we needed on Calypso?" How 40 seconds later, Calypso is modified to just be the letter C, and how 2 minutes later, that message is deleted. If we look at the conversation, you can see very easily how there are users continually deleting messages. Over on the right-hand side, you can also see some of the other metadata fields that we're collecting from Slack. So you can see the active participants within a channel, you can see the channel's name, the modifications, and of course an MD5 hash value that we're able to assign at processing. Another one of the questions that we get is, how does Onna deal with attachments in Slack? Now, as part of the corporate export, you may just receive a list of links, so you won't be able to search through those links easily for content. Within Onna, we're actually processing and indexing attachments separately. If I wanted to search for PDFs within this Slack account, all I would have to do is type PDF, specifying that I'm looking for a PDF. And once I hit return, I can see a list of all of the PDFs within that account. Now, I can open any of these to see them in their original format. Here you can see the PDF, and you can see that this PDF contains some kanji characters or Japanese characters. Onna can also be used to search for any characters in UTF-8. So far, we've just been going through basic searches. Let's see what an advanced search would look like within Onna. Here we are with an advanced search. Now, I'm going to open a search that I have already populated. The benefit of using advanced search is that you'll be able to choose very specific metadata fields to run your searches across. So within this screen, you can see how I'm searching across extracted text for Calypso, CPSO, and RAC. Within this screen, you can see how I'm searching across extracted text for Calypso or CPSO. The final line that you can see here is how we represent wildcard search. So here I'm able to search for RAC and then any alternate ending. This would be ideal to set up searches for Rachel, let's say, or race. Finally, I can specify whether I want to run that search across a specific channel or even a workspace within Onna. We can take advantage of the over 100 metadata fields that the platform collects across the different integrations that we have. The other benefit of using advanced search is the ability to test your search. So if you're continually adding or changing your search terms, then you'll be able to see whether those terms have an impact on your results. If I click Save and Apply, I'll be taken to all of the files that match those terms, and the next step that you're going to want to do here is to export. So I'll click Export. Here you can see the 3 different options that we offer for export. If your outside counsel has asked you for a search term report, then you're going to want to go for the first option, Generate CSV Report with Metadata. We also offer the option to generate a CSV report and download the files. The one that we're focused on for eDiscovery, though, is our advanced export. We also offer the ability to include family members so that if a parent or an attachment is the file to match that search term, then we're going to be able to pull in either the parent or the attachment to those files if we choose to include family members. When I click Configure, we can see a list of the different metadata fields that we can add to that DAT file or to that CSV report. So this is highly configurable. And when we click Next, we would see how I would go about setting up a load file. So this is a traditional DAT file that you would use for a relativity export. Another one of the popular options that we offer for Slack files in particular is the ability to export in PDF when available. Finally, we can see a preview of all of the configuration that we have created for this export. And once I click Done, we'll be taken to the export screen where we can see that our export is being created. We're glad that you were able to join us today for the conversation and for the product demo. We hope that we were able to demonstrate Onna's full suite of capabilities with Slack Enterprise, from collection, processing, search, and export. Thank you.